The massive alien fleet drifted helplessly in the outer edges of an unknown solar system. Their sleek, crystalline ships, once proud symbols of advanced civilization, now floated like dying fireflies against the backdrop of unfamiliar stars. Commander Roll stood at the main viewport of the flagship, his four-fingered hand pressed against the transparent barrier. Behind him, the command center buzzed with the worried voices of his crew. Their ship's quantum engines had failed simultaneously 3 days ago, leaving them stranded in this dangerous region of space. "Commander, the radiation levels are rising again," reported First Officer Mel. Her silvery skin reflected the pulsing red warning lights. "The shields are holding for now, but our systems are showing increasing strain." Roll turned away from the viewport, his face grim. The fleet carried over 50,000 civilians, families who had embarked on this journey seeking a new home after their own world had become uninhabitable. Now they were trapped in a region of space, bathed in an unusual form of radiation that seemed to target their advanced technology. "How many systems have we lost?" Roll asked, walking to the central holographic display. "The quantum navigation array is completely offline. Communication systems are operating at 30% capacity. Life support is stable but showing signs of degradation." Mel's fingers danced across the control interface. "Most concerning is the failure of our quantum computers. They're becoming increasingly unreliable." The situation was dire. Their entire civilization was built on quantum technology, from their engines to their food synthesizers. This strange radiation was slowly but surely breaking down the very foundation of their technical capabilities. "Get me Chief Scientist Ven," Roll ordered. "There must be something in our historical records about this region of space." Minutes later, an elderly alien with pale blue skin hurried into the command center, carrying a secured data crystal. "Commander, we found something interesting," Ven said, plugging the crystal into the display system. "Our ancient records mention this region. It was once used as a testing ground by a long-vanished civilization." The holographic display filled with ancient text and diagrams. "The radiation here is artificial, a weapon or a defense system left behind millennia ago." "But that's not the most interesting part." Ven's eyes gleamed with excitement. "The records mention a species that could navigate these regions safely." Roll leaned forward. "A species resistant to this radiation. Where are they?" "They're called humans," Ven explained, bringing up a star chart. "They evolved on a planet with unusually high background radiation compared to most life-bearing worlds. Their technology is considered primitive by our standards, but—" He paused dramatically. "Their biology and their simple machines might be exactly what we need." "Humans?" Mel questioned. "I've heard of them. They're newcomers to space travel, barely able to reach their own system's outer planets. How could they help us?" Ven pulled up more data. "Their bodies can withstand radiation levels that would kill most species. More importantly, their early space technology was built to function in high radiation environments. They still use backup systems that don't rely on quantum mechanics at all." Commander Roll studied the information carefully. Their fleet carried the hopes and dreams of their people. If there was even a small chance these humans could help, they had to try. "How do we contact them?" he asked. "Their primary communication methods are remarkably simple: radio waves and digital signals. We can adapt our remaining systems to send a message they'll understand," Ven replied. Roll looked around the command center at his worried crew, then out at the fleet of ships visible through the viewport. 50,000 lives depended on his decision. "Prepare a message," he ordered. "Tell them who we are and what we need. But keep it simple. No quantum encryption, no complex protocols. We need them to understand us." As his crew rushed to comply, Roll returned to the viewport. Somewhere out there, on a blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star, was a species that might save them all. They just had to hope these humans would be willing to help. The fate of their entire fleet now rested on the shoulders of a civilization they had previously considered too primitive to contact. It was a humbling thought, But Roll had a feeling they were about to learn that primitive didn't always mean inferior. The message arrived at Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station on a quiet Tuesday morning. At first, the technicians thought it was just another piece of space noise, but something about the regular pattern caught their attention. Jack Wilson was drinking his third cup of coffee when his computer screen lit up with an unusual signal analysis. The pattern was too organized to be natural, yet unlike anything they'd seen before. He nearly spilled his coffee as he called out to his supervisor. "Dr. Roberts, you need to see this," Jack said, pointing at his screen. "The signal's repeating every 12 minutes, and it's definitely artificial." Dr. Roberts adjusted her glasses and leaned in close to the monitor. Her eyes widened as she studied the pattern. "Get me the director on the line now." Within hours, the station was buzzing with activity. Scientists and military personnel crowded around screens and equipment, all focused on decoding the mysterious message. When they finally cracked it, silence fell over the room. "This can't be right," Dr. Roberts whispered, reading the translated text. "They're asking for our help." The message was surprisingly straightforward. A fleet of alien ships was stranded in a dangerous radiation field. Their advanced technology was failing, and they needed humans, specifically because of their expertise with radiation-resistant technology and their natural biological resistance. The news spread quickly. Emergency meetings were called in capitals around the world. Military commanders debated security risks while scientists argued about technological capabilities. But one fact kept coming up. The aliens had chosen to contact Earth not because of advanced technology, but because of humanity's experience with what they considered primitive solutions. At NASA headquarters, Director Thompson addressed a packed conference room. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're looking at the most important mission in human history. These aliens need our help, and they need it fast." Maps and diagrams covered the walls, showing the location of the stranded fleet. It was far, much farther than any human ship had ever traveled. But the aliens had included specifications for a modified engine design that would allow a human ship to reach them. "The good news is they've provided us with the technology to get there," Thompson continued. "The bad news is we need to find the right team, and we need to do it quickly." In the back of the room, Captain Tom Walker sat quietly, studying the technical specifications. As one of Earth's most experienced deep space engineers, he had spent years dealing with radiation problems in the asteroid mining operations. His ships weren't pretty, but they worked when fancier technology failed. "Sir," he spoke up, drawing everyone's attention. "Their message mentions that their quantum computers are failing. But we've been using hardened analog systems and mechanical backups in the mining fleet for years. We might be able to adapt those systems to their ships." Director Thompson nodded thoughtfully. "That's exactly why we called you here, Captain Walker. We need someone who understands both the engineering and the practical challenges of deep space operations." As the meeting continued, plans began to take shape. A ship would be modified with both human technology and the alien engine specifications. A crew would be assembled. Engineers, radiation specialists, and medical personnel who had experience working in high radiation environments. "The world's governments have agreed," Thompson announced. "This will be a joint mission representing all of humanity. Captain Walker will command with an international crew of 12 specialists." Walker stood at the window after the meeting, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, 50,000 aliens were waiting for help from a species they had probably considered backward until now. The irony wasn't lost on him. His phone buzzed. The crew assignments were coming in. The best minds from around the world, chosen not for their advanced theoretical knowledge, but for their practical experience with the kind of tough, reliable technology that could survive in space. "Well," he muttered to himself, "I guess sometimes the old ways are the best ways." The next few days would be crucial. They had to modify a ship, prepare the crew, and plan for every possible contingency. Humanity's first official contact with an alien civilization wouldn't be a grand diplomatic exchange. It would be a rescue mission. And somehow, that seemed perfectly fitting. The experimental ship Resilient sat on the launch pad, its hull a peculiar mix of sleek alien technology and sturdy human engineering. Steam rose from its cooling systems as the final preparations were made for humanity's first deep space rescue mission. Captain Walker walked through the ship's main corridor, checking systems one last time. The walls were lined with analog gauges and manual controls alongside the newly installed alien navigation interfaces. It wasn't pretty, but it was practical. "All systems check complete, Captain," reported engineer Mike Ross, closing an access panel. "The hybrid drive is as ready as it'll ever be." Never thought I'd see alien tech bolted onto good old-fashioned human hardware. The crew of 12 gathered in the command center for their final briefing. They were an unusual mix: radiation specialists, engineers, and medical personnel, chosen for their experience rather than their credentials. "Remember," Walker addressed his team, "we're about to attempt something unprecedented. The alien drive will get us there faster than anything humans have built, but we're going to face radiation levels that would fry most sophisticated equipment. That's why we're bringing the basics." Dr. Linda Cooper, their chief medical officer, gestured to the radiation badges everyone wore. "Our natural resistance will help, but don't get overconfident. Monitor your exposure levels and report any unusual symptoms immediately." The countdown began. On the ground, thousands watched as the Resilience engines roared to life. The hybrid drive glowed with an otherworldly blue light as human and alien technology worked together for the first time. "Launch in 10, 9, 8. Walker gripped his chair as the ship shuddered. This was the moment of truth. Either the hybrid drive would work, or they'd never make it past Mars. 3, 2, 1. Ignition. The Resilient leaped from Earth with acceleration that should have been impossible. The alien drive performed perfectly, warping space in ways human science was only beginning to understand. Stars blurred past the viewports as the ship reached speeds no human vessel had ever achieved. "Drive is stable," reported Ross from his station. "The radiation shielding is holding. Our old-school systems are actually handling this better than expected." Hours turned into days as they pushed deeper into space. The crew settled into their routines, monitoring the strange mix of technologies that kept them alive. The alien navigation system guided them through space, while human-built backup systems stood ready in case anything failed. On the 10th day, they entered the radiation field where the alien fleet was stranded. Warning alarms immediately began blaring. "Radiation levels are off the charts," called out Dr. Cooper, "but the crew's exposure remains within safe limits. Looks like the aliens were right about human resistance." Walker watched as the sophisticated alien sensors began to fail one by one, while the simple human radiation detectors continued working perfectly. "Switch to backup systems," he ordered. "Let's show our new friends why sometimes simpler is better." Through the forward viewport, they finally saw it: the alien fleet. Dozens of massive ships drifted in the golden haze of the radiation field, their crystalline hulls reflecting distant starlight. "They're beautiful," whispered Lisa Green, their communications officer. "And huge. Each one of those ships must be bigger than anything we've ever built." Opening communications channel, she continued, using the basic radio system they'd brought specifically for this purpose. "This is Earth vessel Resilient responding to your distress call. Do you copy?" For a moment, there was only static. Then a clear voice responded in carefully practiced English. "Resilient, this is Commander Roll. We weren't sure you would actually come." Walker stepped forward. "We're here to help, Commander. We've brought technology that can work in these conditions. Permission to dock." "Granted. And thank you. You've already achieved what we thought impossible: functioning in this radiation field." As the Resilient maneuvered toward the alien flagship's docking port, Walker looked at his crew. They were about to become the first humans to set foot on an alien vessel, not as guests or diplomats, but as rescuers. "All right, people," he said. "Let's show them what humans can do. The real work starts now." The docking seal hissed as the airlock cycled between the Resilient and the alien flagship. Walker led his team through, carrying toolkits filled with what would have been considered outdated equipment on Earth. The aliens waiting for them were tall, silvery-skinned beings with four-fingered hands and large, expressive eyes. Commander Roll stepped forward, making the greeting gesture they had learned from Earth's response message. "Welcome aboard the Starweaver. Though I wish our first meeting came under better circumstances." The human team stared in awe at the alien ship's interior. Crystalline walls pulsed with dying light, and holographic displays flickered uncertainly in the air. What caught Engineer Ross's attention, however, were the obvious signs of deterioration in the ship's systems. "Your quantum computers," Ross said, pointing to a particularly unstable display. "They're not just malfunctioning, they're being fundamentally altered by the radiation." Chief Scientist Venn nodded, his silver skin reflecting the emergency lights. "Yes. The radiation seems to interfere with quantum coherence itself. Our entire technological base depends on quantum computing, and it's all failing." Dr. Cooper scanned the area with her handheld radiation detector. Pure human technology, built with simple electronics and a Geiger-Miller tube. "The radiation levels are intense, but it's a type we've dealt with before in our early space program." "Impossible," one of the alien technicians said. "Our sensors indicate the radiation levels are fatal to most organic life." Walker smiled. "That's why you called us. Humans evolved on a planet with relatively high background radiation. We built our first space technologies to withstand these conditions. Sometimes, the old ways work best." The team spread out through the ship, assessing systems and taking readings. Lisa Green worked with the alien communications officers, setting up a backup radio network to replace their failing quantum communication grid. The aliens watched in fascination as the humans installed simple, robust technology that their civilization had outgrown centuries ago. "Look at this," Ross called out, opening a panel to reveal the ship's power distribution system. "Their power grid is incredibly efficient, but also incredibly vulnerable. We need to install surge protectors and mechanical circuit breakers." Walker gathered his team and the alien engineers for a briefing. "Here's what we're looking at. Your quantum systems are failing, but your basic power generation is still good. We can bypass the quantum controllers and install manual backups. It won't be as elegant, but it'll work." The aliens struggled with the concept. Manual controls, but the computational requirements. "Don't need computers at all," Ross interrupted. "Look." He pulled out an old-fashioned slide rule. "We used to navigate space with these. No quantum uncertainty to worry about. Just basic math and mechanical precision." As the humans began their work, the aliens watched in astonishment as simple mechanical systems were integrated into their advanced technology. Analog gauges replaced quantum sensors. Mechanical switches bypassed failing neural interfaces. Radio communications substituted for quantum entanglement networks. "It's like watching our own history in reverse," Venn commented to Walker. "We thought we had moved beyond these technologies, but in this environment, they're our salvation." The work continued around the clock. The human team taught the aliens how to operate manual controls, how to read analog instruments, and how to make repairs without relying on artificial intelligence assistance. The aliens proved to be quick learners, their initial skepticism giving way to genuine appreciation for the elegant simplicity of mechanical solutions. "Your people have achieved something remarkable," Roll told Walker as they watched Ross install a manual backup for the life support controls. "You've kept the knowledge of these simple technologies even as you've advanced. We forgot our foundations as we reached for the stars." Walker nodded, understanding the lesson that was becoming clear to both species. The most advanced solution isn't always the best solution. Sometimes you need a backup plan, something that works even when your best technology fails. The retrofitting of the flagship was just the beginning. They had dozens more ships to modify, and time was running out. But watching humans and aliens working side by side, combining the best of both their technologies, Walker felt confident they would succeed. After all, he thought, that's what humans do best, finding ways to survive against the odds. Warning lights flashed across the alien fleet as another wave of intense radiation washed over the ships. Inside the Starweaver, both human and alien crews worked frantically to keep critical systems running. Life support is failing on decks 3 through 7. An alien technician called out. The quantum regulators that had maintained perfect atmospheric conditions for centuries were now deteriorating rapidly. Ross wiped sweat from his forehead as he and his team rushed to install manual backup systems. Route emergency power through the mechanical bypasses we installed, he shouted. The old systems will hold. Throughout the fleet, similar scenes played out. The radiation had grown stronger, as if the ancient defense system had sensed their presence and was increasing its efforts to drive them away. The human crew split up among different ships, teaching alien engineers how to maintain the hybrid systems. Dr. Cooper monitored the crew's radiation exposure from the medical bay they'd set up. The aliens are showing signs of radiation sickness, she reported to Walker. Their natural resistance is much lower than ours. We need to get their children to safer areas. Walker made a quick decision. Start evacuating the young ones to the Resilient. Our radiation shielding is strongest there, and it's built to handle these conditions. The evacuation began immediately. Alien parents handed their children to human crew members, trust born of desperation overcoming their natural caution. The Resilient's cargo holds were converted into temporary shelters, filled with the soft blue glow of alien children's bioluminescent skin. Lisa Green coordinated the evacuation efforts, her voice steady over the radio network, as she directed families to safety. Remember, only essential personnel remain on the outer decks. All others move to the shielded core sections. In the engine room of the Starweaver, Ross and his alien counterparts fought to keep the power systems stable. The mechanical bypasses were working, but they required constant adjustment and monitoring. It's not elegant, Ross explained to an alien engineer as they manually balanced the power flow, but it'll keep you alive. Sometimes the simplest solution is the most reliable. The alien watched in fascination as Ross used basic tools to maintain the jury-rigged system. We've relied on automation for so long, the engineer admitted. These manual skills, we'd forgotten how important they could be. On the bridge, Walker worked with Commander Roll to coordinate the fleet's survival efforts. Their ships were arranged in a defensive formation, with the most vulnerable vessels protected by those with stronger remaining shields. Another wave approaching, Roll announced, reading from one of the few working sensors, bigger than the last one. Walker grabbed the ship-wide communication system, a simple speaker and microphone setup that had replaced the quantum network. All hands, brace for impact. Engineering teams, stand by for emergency repairs. The radiation wave hit like a physical force. Lights flickered, and alarms blared throughout the fleet. But the hybrid systems held. Where sophisticated quantum technology failed, simple mechanical backups kept the ships functioning. Report. Walker called out as the wave passed. Life support stable on emergency systems, came the response from various ships. Power levels holding. Manual controls responding. But they all knew they were running out of time. The radiation was growing stronger, and even human resilience had its limits. They needed to get the fleet moving before it was too late. The engine modifications are almost complete on the first 5 ships, Ross reported. We can start testing the hybrid drive systems within the hour. Walker looked at Roll. We need to move fast. The longer we stay here, the worse it'll get. The alien commander nodded, his silver skin pale with exhaustion. Agreed. We'll begin powering up the modified engines as soon as they're ready. As the crews continued their desperate work, the human team's dedication had earned them more than just the aliens' trust. It had earned their respect. These primitive humans had proved that sometimes, Moving forward meant remembering the lessons of the past. In the resilience-converted cargo hold, alien children watched Earth videos about space exploration, learning about the species that had come to their rescue. Their parent civilization had reached for the stars with quantum computers and artificial intelligence. Humans had done it with slide rules, determination, and backup plans. A massive surge in the radiation field lit up space like a golden storm. Warning systems across the fleet screamed as energy levels climbed beyond anything they'd seen before. "This is it," Walker announced from the Starweaver's bridge. "The system's reaching some kind of peak. We either get out now, or we don't get out at all." The modified engines on the first group of ships were ready, but the flagship's main power core was failing. Without it, half the fleet would be left behind. "The core housing is warping," Ross reported through the radio, his voice tense. "The mechanical systems can't compensate. Someone needs to manually realign the containment rings." Walker looked at the sensor readings and felt his stomach sink. The radiation levels near the core would be lethal to the aliens. Even for humans, it would be dangerous. "I'll go," he said, already moving toward the engine section. "Ross, talk me through it." Commander Roll grabbed his arm. "The radiation levels there. Even your species can't survive that for long." "Long enough," Walker replied. "That's all we need." He rushed to suit up in their modified space gear. The human-designed radiation suit was bulky compared to alien technology, but it was reliable. Dr. Cooper helped him check the seals. "You've got 20 minutes at most," he warned. "After that, even human resilience won't help." The path to the core took Walker through increasingly dangerous areas of the ship. His radiation badge clicked faster with each step, but the old-fashioned Geiger counter kept working while alien sensors failed completely. "The containment rings are behind the main shield," Ross guided him through the radio. "You'll need to manually rotate them back into alignment. The controls are on the outer housing." Walker reached the core chamber and felt his breath catch. The massive power core pulsed with unstable energy, its quantum containment fields visibly fluctuating. The manual controls they'd installed were on a platform that extended out over a deep shaft. "Beginning alignment," he reported, stepping onto the platform. The metal creaked under his feet. His gloved hands found the heavy mechanical controls. The radiation suit's thickness made fine manipulation difficult, but he trained for this. Slowly, he began turning the massive wheel that would realign the rings. "Radiation's spiking." Dr. Cooper's voice crackled through his radio. "Walker, you need to move faster." Sweat poured down his face inside the suit as he strained against the wheel. The platform swayed dangerously. Through the suit's visor, he could see the radiation burns beginning to appear on his hands despite the protection. 10 degrees more," Ross called out. "The containment field is starting to stabilize." Walker's vision began to blur, but he kept turning. The wheel suddenly gave way with a grinding sound, and he felt the whole core chamber vibrate as the rings locked into place. "Containment stable," Ross shouted. "Power levels normalizing. Walker, get out of there now." But when Walker tried to move, he found his legs wouldn't respond properly. The radiation exposure was taking its toll faster than expected. "Can't walk," he managed to say into the radio. Immediately, he heard running footsteps. A rescue team of both humans and aliens burst into the chamber. They worked together to carry him out, the aliens using their knowledge of the ship's layout, while the humans handled the high radiation areas. In the medical bay, Dr. Cooper worked frantically to treat his radiation exposure. "The dose was massive," she told Ross, "but he got the job done. The core is stable." Throughout the fleet, the modified engines came to life. The hybrid of human and alien technology proved stronger than either one alone, pushing against the radiation field that had trapped them. "All ships report ready," Lisa Green announced from her station. "The hybrid drives are responding. We can make it out." Commander Roll stood watching as Walker was treated, his silver skin reflecting the medical bay's lights. "Your captain risked everything to save my people," he said quietly. That's what humans do, Ross replied, checking the engine readings. We find a way, no matter the cost. As the fleet began its carefully coordinated escape from the radiation field, Walker drifted in and out of consciousness, knowing that 50,000 lives would survive because humanity remembered how to do things the hard way. 3 weeks after the rescue, the combined fleet approached Earth's solar system. Captain Walker stood on the Starweaver's bridge, still recovering but back on his feet. The radiation burns on his hands had healed, leaving only faint scars as a reminder of their desperate escape. It's strange, Commander Roll said, studying Earth through the viewport. From here, it looks so ordinary, a simple blue world around a common star. Yet it produced a species that could do what we thought impossible. The fleet had undergone a transformation during their journey home. What started as emergency modifications had evolved into a true fusion of technologies. Alien quantum systems now worked alongside human mechanical backups, creating something entirely new. Engineering reports the hybrid systems are actually more efficient than our original technology, Roll continued. The combination of quantum computing with manual overrides. It's revolutionary. We were so focused on advancing that we forgot the value of reliability. The alien children who had sheltered aboard the Resilient had become unofficial ambassadors between the species. They were fascinated by human stories of early space exploration, of astronauts using slide rules and basic computers to reach the moon. Look, Lisa Green pointed to the main display. First contact protocols are being initiated. Earth's governments are preparing for your arrival. News of the rescue had reached Earth weeks ago, and the world had been preparing for this moment. The sight of the massive alien fleet approaching peacefully, escorted by the Resilient, would be remembered for generations. We've prepared something, Walker said, nodding to Ross. The engineer activated a communication channel that reached every ship in the fleet. The sound of human voices filled the air, a choir singing a welcome song in both Earth languages and the aliens' musical speech. The aliens listened in amazement as the harmonies bridged the gap between their cultures. Your species continues to surprise us, Roll said. You understand that music crosses boundaries. Another simple truth we have forgotten. Dr. Cooper's medical team had made breakthroughs too, developing treatments that combined human radiation resistance techniques with alien healing technology. The results promise to revolutionize medicine for both species. The Galactic Council will need to revise its definition of advanced civilization, then commented, reviewing data from their journey. We judged advancement by complexity, but you showed us that true progress means keeping what works while moving forward. As Earth grew larger in their view, Walker gathered his crew for one final meeting. They had changed during this mission, just as they had helped change the aliens' perspective. What we did here, he told them, wasn't just about saving lives. We proved that different paths to the stars are equally valid. Sometimes the old ways and new ways work best together. The fleet began receiving guidance signals from Earth's space control. Humanity's first official contact with alien life would not be a diplomatic ceremony, but the conclusion of a successful rescue mission, a partnership forged in crisis. We would like to establish a permanent exchange program, Roll announced. Our engineers need to learn your practical approaches, and we have much to teach you about quantum technology. Together, we could create something greater than either of us could alone. Walker looked at his crew, humans who had risked everything to save a more advanced civilization, using technology that belonged in a museum. They had earned their place among the stars not through overwhelming advancement, but through resilience, ingenuity, and the willingness to get their hands dirty. The universe is vast, he said, and there's room for all kinds of solutions. Maybe that's the most important lesson here. As the fleet entered Earth orbit, signals of welcome poured in from every nation. The alien ships, once stranded and helpless, now sailed proudly alongside human vessels. Their crystalline hulls had been modified with simple backup systems, a visible symbol of how two civilizations had learned from each other. To think, Roll mused, We once considered your species too primitive to contact. Now you've taught us that true wisdom lies not in abandoning the past, but in building upon it. The stars shone steadily as humanity welcomed its first alien visitors, not as superiors or inferiors, but as equals who had discovered that sometimes the best way forward is to remember where you came from.